All right, well, welcome everyone. This is our first episode of the Sports Snobs. I am Brian Kaz, and my co-host is Pat. You can see our social medias at the bottom, so please add us, like us, share us, do all that fun stuff on social media. We hope to bring you some fun and interesting takes on sports. So with that, Pat, I wanted to start with the World Series. We're taping this on Tuesday. So right now it is 3-2 Los Angeles.
Yep.
So what's your overall view on the World Series so far? How do you think it's going?
I think it's a great series. Given the circumstances of everything going on with COVID and the shortened season and having kind of that bubble aspect of the playoffs, all things considered, I think the playoffs in general have been phenomenal. But this series in particular, like I said, it might go down as one of the greatest series in World Series history, just given the fact that it's constant back and forth, right? Dodgers take game one, Rays take game two. They just switch back and forth 3, 4, 5. So it seems like it's destined for that game seven. But yeah, stealing home, all these different crazy plays that are going on in this series. I think it's great. I think it's great for the sport, especially.
Yeah, I was really surprised with Tampa even competing with the Dodgers. I thought the Dodgers early on in this 60-game season were really going to just run away with it. And
Yeah.
Tampa tends to have these sneaky teams that just hang in there. And, you talked about the crazy plays. I think one of the crazy plays, maybe besides the Bill Buckner play, is that Game 4 play. And I think we have a clip of it where the Rays kind of had that walk-off hit where, like, 4 things went wrong. So, like I said, I think we have a clip of that. So yeah, here they're down 2, or they're down 1, but they have 2 on.
Yeah.
Center fielder beats. You never see that. Now the guy's going to score, but he's going to fall down. But the kicker has no clue where the ball is. It went from standard routine steal to guy boots the ball.
To the invisible bag.
It looked like our buddy Chris from softball around the third base where he falls down.
He just falls down.
And
tag with and then just losing the ball. If he makes the play, it's a tie game. Anything can happen. Rays might still win it. But to lose on that play, 2-run scoring on what should have just been a single for the most part.
Yeah.
Series might have been over by now, but like you said, the Rays are just finding those kind of scrappy ways, and they're playing the game totally different than any other team has played this season, even going back to the regular season, kind of going with those openers and whatnot. But I think that play is kind of just a microcosm of the whole season for the Rays and how they've gotten to this point.
And I know you talked about the Rays trying to steal home in Game 5, which I thought was a risky move, but at the time, Kershaw was playing phenomenal.
Yeah. I've never seen
manufacture a run somehow.
Yeah. On third base, though, 2 outs on third base. It's just. He almost makes it, right? So we could judge this play 2 ways. We can say the idea of trying to steal home is just absurd, right? It's the last time it was actually done successfully. I think Jackie Robinson was the last person to actually successfully steal home. In the
World Series,
trade up steal.
Yeah.
So you can judge it on the idea of doing it, and then you look at the play. It's still absurd, but the fact that he almost gets in makes you kind of second guess the decision. But I just think in the World Series, in the regular season, it's one thing, but in the World Series, runner on third, I don't think that's a good call.
But the way Kershaw was pitching and the way the Tampa Bay has been having problems with runners in scoring position, Kershaw being a lefty, his back is to third base. The guy had a huge lead. Kershaw has that very exaggerated motion to the plate. So, I think it was a calculated risk. Didn't work, but
no.
They're here in Game 6 tonight. Game 7's tomorrow. So by the time people see this, they'll know who wins. But who do you think pulls it out, and in what game?
I think the series is just going to keep going the way it's going. I think the Rays find a way to win tonight. I mean, the Dodgers have Tony Gonsolin on the mound. Who knows how long he's going to last in the game? They might kind of piecemeal something together like they did in, I think it was Game 2, if I'm not mistaken, where I think they had 3 out of the starter and whatnot. But in any case, I think it's just kind of that flip-flop type of series. Rays will, in my opinion, will take tonight and then come down to the winner-take-all Game 7. So I think the excitement, it's kind of just destined to go to 7 games, in my opinion. It just feels that way.
So who do you got in Game 7?
I got the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers will take it. I think the idea from what I heard on the radio is that Walker Buehler is the guy for Game 7. Pitching on 3 days rest, I believe, but he's just been absolutely lights out. Not even just the postseason, and just in general. I mean, he's a solid pitcher. I just feel like the Dodgers are due. How many years in a row can the Dodgers win their division or make the playoffs and then just get bumped out either before the World Series or in the World Series? It just seems like it's got to be destiny at this point.
I heard Tampa Bay is calling Jose Altuve and asking him where he got that buzzer from last year so they can get some pitches. That's what I heard.
They're way ahead of that. They got better than buzzers.
So let's go to the NFL. So the big news this week was this was the first week in a while where we didn't have any games moved, postponed, or anything for COVID. So does that give you a little bit more promise that maybe we'll actually get to a Super Bowl and have a full 17-week season?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that they're going to complete the season just because it's the NFL. I mean, they do things that other sports just don't do. Even starting the season, right? And obviously without fans and certain strict protocols in place, but the fact that they even moved forward with us starting the season in September is just kind of mind-boggling, but also impressive at the same time. So, I think no COVID, no positive tests or no outbreaks, at least, right, in the last week, nothing causing postponements or cancellations. That's got to be a good sign. I think the Titans' whole scenario, that whole fiasco with kind of testing positive and then somewhat breaking protocols to have a practice offsite or whatever the case may be, I think that kind of, I guess, motivated teams to say, we don't want to end up, missing 2 weeks of football, bye week, and then getting flexed to a Tuesday night game. It just throws off your whole season at that rate, right? Titans kind of responded well to it, but just in general, I think other teams see that and they're thinking to themselves, how many more weeks do we really have to go? We're already in week 8. So what do you have? Nine more weeks and then plus playoffs. So if you're not making the playoffs, all you have is 9 weeks left. That's less than the NBA was in their bubble. So at this point, you have to feel pretty optimistic about the status of the league as it relates to COVID.
And I think that this year having no positive cases, especially with the outbreak going on throughout the country, was great. And I think it was even more important because you don't really have as much latitude with bye weeks because teams are already having their byes.
Exactly.
So you do that rescheduling. So I think that was a great sign. As for the NFC West, do you think that that's the best division? I mean, there's not a team there that's under 500.
Yeah.
LA, the Rams last night, they, everybody was high on the Bears and they just killed them.
Everybody but me. I was not a believer in the Bears at all. Honestly, I feel like it's the same
Giants fan, and Nick Foles is now their quarterback. Therefore, you cannot like the Bears. But that's another.
I don't like them. You could. That's a great point. You bring up the Giants. Look at the game that the Giants played against the Bears. The Bears ran that game from start to finish. There's no doubt that they had full control of that game. But at the end of the game, it's a one score victory with the Giants driving down the field. So I think every game they've won has just been kind of questionable. Their offense is just terrible. I'm not sure if Foles is really playing much better than Mitchell Trubisky was. I mean, he kind of sparked him in the beginning, and you can see he has more arm talent as far as throws down the field, whether it's kind of deep comebacks or even those seams and whatnot. But I mean, you really believed in the Bears last night? I know you may have placed a little wager on them, not to win, but to cover 6 points. So,
hey, I got the Bears as my fantasy football defense. So, yes, I did go Bears +6 and the under. I got half of it right.
Got the under, yeah.
But do you think that it's more of a statement of the Rams being good or the Bears being bad with that win?
I think it's a little bit of both. There's no doubt the Bears, I mean, statistically, you could see they have one of the top, it might be top 5 defenses halfway through the season. And, that's kind of been the way they play, over the last 10 years. That's just what they're known for, right? A solid defense. But, I mean, the Rams I like the tempo they ran. They caught the Bears out of position a lot. I think if they continue to be creative and Sean McVay continues to kind of, I guess, go back to his play calling from a couple of years ago, where it was much more spread out, tempo, switch it up on the teams. I think it says something about Sean McVay. I don't know if it says much about the Rams yet. But to your point, this is clearly the best division in football. So once they kind of prove themselves within the division, I think they played every NFC East team within the first 5 weeks. So, I mean, what does that say about you as far as beating those teams? I don't know. When you start having these in division, the divisional games, then obviously I think we'll know a little bit more. But 19-8 in the division, the entire division, I mean, that's the best division in football, hands down.
And to your point about in-division games, I think one of the best games of the week was Seattle and Arizona. And I don't know about you, I thought Seattle would, not run away with it, but I thought it would be an easy win. And then Russell Wilson decided to, throw his 3 interceptions. Chris Carson got hurt. Peterson shut down DK Metcalf. Lockett blew up. But, what was your thoughts on the Sunday game?
Going into it, I think the spread was something like, was it Seahawks or Cardinals +3.5, maybe something like that. It's a very small number, and I thought going into that you have to take that bet, right? I mean, Seahawks are probably -3.5. I thought they were going to win handedly, and they probably do if Russell Wilson doesn't do things that Russell Wilson doesn't typically do, like throw 3 interceptions in a game. One that should have been a pick 6. But yeah, I still think the Seahawks are, a top 5 team in the NFL. I think this is just a case of just a Sunday night game. Cardinals just being motivated. It's a divisional game. So I guess kind of going back to your question about the Rams and Bears, who does it say more about, the Seahawks or the Cardinals? I think it really says more about the Cardinals kind of showing up and knocking off the Seahawks, the first place team.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the play that the interception that should have been a touchdown. I think we have a clip of that because this is a big boy running down a cornerback and catching him from like 15 yards out there. So, this was an amazing play.
Should have been the play of the game.
It should have been. I mean, if they didn't go to overtime, this wins the game. Look at it. Look at it. That guy's like what? 230, 240?
Yeah, with a Baker.
He's
making up 10+ yards on. I mean, that is just
easily 10 yards, and he was like 5 yards inside. The one thing I love about that play is like DK Metcalf. He's getting all the praise. It's only his second year, and typically wide receivers are divas. But the kid who he just comes in, he works hard every day. He didn't quit on that. You're not seeing I hate to say it, but you're not seeing Antonio Brown, who's now back in the league. You're not seeing Amari Cooper. You're not seeing anybody like that doing that much hustle. And even though he has his pink hair and his two huge, gold earrings that he wears all there. He's not the typical wide receiver diva. He's somebody who, a high school coach, a college coach could put on that tape and go, this is why you play to the whistle every single down. And that's a player that I can root for. Even if he only got my fantasy team 2 points, I still like the kid.
Plus for preventing the touchdown.
Yeah, he should have. He should have +6 for that. So now you mentioned, you are a Giants fan, but you mentioned that the Rams, 4 of their wins are against the NFC East. So we go from the best division to not even question if it's the worst division. But historically, how bad do you think this division is?
I have never seen anything like this. I mean, you've seen the divisions where the first place team is kind of running away with it, and then the three teams behind that team are kind of terrible, for lack of better words, right? You've seen like the 7-0 start with the maybe 3-4, 2-5, 1-6, but for each team to be under 500, not even close. I mean, we're not just saying 3-4, right? I mean, this is a bad division, historically bad. 7-20-1 through the first 7 weeks. I mean, it's just, I've never seen anything like this. You're a bit older than I have, so maybe you can speak to before my time, but this is just, there's really no way to even explain it. I mean, the Cowboys should be good. And by good, I just mean like show up and play football and be competitive based on their skill positions. I mean, you have Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper. You had Dak right before the horrendous injury. And of course, I mean, their defense is bad, but there's a lot of bad defenses whose offenses carry them to victories. Cowboys were kind of doing that in the beginning. Obviously, without Prescott, that becomes a bit more difficult. But the Cowboys are usually in there, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. After that, I mean, the Eagles ravaged by injuries again. The Giants just doing Giants things. And the Washington football team, I mean, who knows? This could be their division for the take.
I mean, if the Giants pull out that win against Philadelphia, they're tied for first place, which is scary. But to your point, I mean, yeah, you had, the 2010 Patriots dynasty. Yeah, they usually led the AFC East by 4 or 5 games, but you still had teams that won 5, 6 games. I don't think the division winner gets 6 games in this division.
Yeah, it'll be tough. It really will. And then it's going to obviously spark those conversations of, do we go to the NBA format where we're taking regardless of division, we're just taking in the NBA, it's 8 best, right? But in the NFL, what would it be? The 7 best now, since they've changed the format a little bit. How do you kind of penalize, I guess, again, for lack of better words, the team that wins a division at 6-10? Because now they're hosting a first-round playoff game. And sure, home field advantage might not be quite what it was in prior years with fans there, if there's no fans at the end or if they're in a bubble. But to allow a home game, potentially, I mean, picture this. Picture the Washington football team hosting a home playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Packers. I mean, it just doesn't seem fair.
I totally agree with you there. I don't think the Packers will be there because I think they'll win their division. But I can see it against, an Arizona Cardinals, a Saints, Tampa Bay, whoever doesn't win there. And that's where I think the NFL needs to change is, yes, you win your division, you're in the playoffs, but it should be the top records get the home field advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
But I mean, I think you could find, Alabama, if you put Alabama in the NFC East, they might have a better record right now.
I mean, you could easily argue that they probably have more first round picks on their current team than obviously any team in that division does. So skill wise and talent wise, hey, I'd love to see that. That'd be something.
And it would probably be the best coach in the division as well. Just saying.
Absolutely.
Even though he was horrible when he was at the Dolphins. But regardless, so do you think the Cowboys are kind of tanking for Trevor? Do you think that there's some kind of culture in that locker room where they're like, we don't want to have to franchise Dak again? We don't want to have to pay him that money because we don't think he's that good. And then he goes down with a horrific injury. You don't know if he'll ever bounce back. Do you think people are like, why are we going to kill ourselves when we can now get a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal and not just have Zeke and Cooper, but have money to get other players? Do you think that that's anything popping into anybody's head?
I'm sure it's popping into their heads. But again, it goes back to the point that, technically, if you're sitting 1 or 2 games out of first place with a miserable record, again, going back to all the skill that they have on that team, Cooper, Elliott, Michael Gallup is on the rise. CeeDee Lamb obviously shows out from week to week. I find it hard to believe that you can, I guess, kind of convince those players or kind of put that energy out there that we're not really going to try. For superstar players, that seems like something that'd be a little difficult to do. Do I put it past Jerry Jones to have that in his mind or to be kind of wishing it? No, I wouldn't put anything past Jerry Jones. But I think you could still get a top 10 pick, right? Winning the division at, let's say, 5-11, and then, maybe pulling off some sort of trade. That if you have a number 9 or number 10 pick, there's still some value to that. Teams are willing to trade out. The Jets or the Giants, if they're at number 1, Giants obviously wouldn't trade a pick to the Cowboys, but if the Jets had the number 1 pick, are they going to draft a quarterback? Are they going to stick with Sam Darnold, or would they trade back to the number 10 and take the Cowboys' number 1 pick next year, along with, who knows, Amari Cooper maybe? I know they just signed them, but I think anything's in play when you're this bad.
Well, to be honest, it might not matter because I don't know if you saw the reports, but Trevor Lawrence said he might go back to Clemson next year.
I did see that.
I think that's because he saw the teams that are at the bottom, and he's like, yeah, I'd rather stay in Clemson than go to any one of those places. But
I don't know.
The Giants, the Giants almost getting there. That Daniel Jones run, what happened there on that 80 run? Like,
he got tired. He was running 21 miles per hour. He hit a wall. Almost literally. It looked like he literally hit a wall.
I disagree. With it being Halloween, I actually have a different theory. We have a little bit of a clip here of what I think really happened with it being, a week before Halloween.
Oh, all right. Let's see.
Trying to stay upright, and he trips. Absolutely all alone, and he trips.
By the way, that throw by Jason Voorhees with Axe would make him the best quarterback in the NFC East.
Hands down.
Biggest arm, everything.
I didn't see it that way live, but I might have missed something. I'll have to go back and look at that replay again.
Yeah, no, it's Jason Voorhees. He comes out of nowhere. But and then Ebron, he dropped what, 2-3 passes?
Engram.
What?
Engram, I think, is what you meant.
Sorry. Yep.
If we had Ebron, we might have won a couple games by now. He's just not a good pass catching tight end, and they knew it from the start. They knew it when they drafted him. He's not even. It's not that he's dropping the ball this year. He has 2 drops, which I guess is technically, top in the league, somewhere near the top of the league this early in the season. But he just kind of crocodile handed it. He didn't even reach his hands fully out. That's a catch that every other skill position player on the field or sideline in that game makes. And he just finds a way to just continue to frustrate Giants fans and some fantasy owners, from what I hear.
I am one of those. We're really picking on my fantasy team this week. Hey, I still got a better record than you, my friend.
You do. I had a bad week.
So AFC East, right? Typically that's Patriots. All day Patriots, you don't have to question. at the beginning of the year, it was like, ooh, the Bills might have it. And then they signed Cam Newton.
Yeah.
But now Cam Newton started out pretty good, got the COVID. Not sure if that's affecting him. But he is just playing horrible lately. So is this the Bills' division to win now?
And you would think, although they haven't looked very good in the last couple of weeks, losing 2 games in a row, right, and then almost blowing one to the Jets. I was legitimate. I did place a little bet on that game, and I was legitimately worried about the outcome of that game. I thought the Jets might find a way to pull that one out, but the way Josh Allen played it through the first 4 or 5 games, you would think that the Bills would be running away with this, but then you look at the Dolphins, and you have to ask yourself, this team is what, 3-4 or 3-3. I'm not sure. That's your team. You correct me on the record there, but with Ryan Fitzpatrick, or Fitzmagic, should I say? And now you're going to Tua. So the question is, will the Dolphins be better with Tua? What's the kind of the reason for making that move at this point in the season when you're just maybe 2 games out of first place? And who knows? Might be able to slip into the playoffs with the wild card. So definitely the Bills' division to lose, but the Dolphins, I think you just got to keep an eye on them.
I agree with you. I don't think it was the right decision to do Tua now, but I honestly think that before the season started, management said after the bye, it's Tua's team regardless of record. That's the only thing that could explain this, because, like you said, Fitzpatrick, he had 1 bad game, but other than that, he's been playing very good. It was also a disappointment to hear how he kind of found out from the media and the management didn't tell him.
Yeah, so, that had, what is it, Wilmer Flores all over it from a couple of years ago, the Mets finding out in the middle of the game from the fans. Yeah, you hate to see it. He's Fitzpatrick, a likable guy, journeyman through his entire career, Harvard guy. It's hard not to root for him. To your point, yeah, I'm sure they said, regardless of record, we're going to go to Tua after the bye week. But in looking at the schedule, in your opinion, does it? Look at these next 3 games: Rams, Cardinals, and Chargers. Great defenses. Big man Aaron Donald on the other side of the line there on the Rams. Does that make you worry for Tua? Are you concerned? It's been, I think, just over a year since the hip injury.
It was a year to the day when he started. When he got in last game. I don't want Aaron Donald and the rest of the Rams defensive line coming at my quarterback his first full game after reconstructive hip surgery. I really don't. I don't agree with the decision. I often don't agree with the Dolphins' managerial moves. Look at Jack Rosen. That was a stupid trade. They've gotten better in the past 2 years, I would say, besides Rosen. But I don't agree with it, especially when they're playing the way they are, with Fitzpatrick playing the way he was, and the way he was such a cheerleader on the sideline when they put Tua in for those last 2-3 plays, and he was like the guy, ramping everybody up. So he seems like a great guy, great mentor, and for him to find out that way and for him to lose his job just because they want to put the rookie in, even though you have a chance to get into the playoffs, that was disappointing to me.
That's a good point, because it goes back to, if they did decide it in the beginning of the season, would he have been so kind of rah-rah when they took him out of the last game for Tua? If he knew that was potentially his last game, I don't know if he actually reacts that way, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens. But hey, maybe they go undefeated the rest of the season. Who knows? We can only judge this after the fact. But I agree with you. I think it was too soon. I think you ride the hot hand, and in the AFC East, hand doesn't have to be too hot.
Agreed. So AFC Central, big game this week.
Another great
Pittsburgh and the Ravens. Pittsburgh was a great game last week against the Titans. 2 undefeated. Now it's only Pittsburgh in the AFC. So who do you got, Pittsburgh Ravens, this week?
It feels kind of silly to be this confident, but I feel like it's the Steelers, and I think it's a no-brainer. I just think the Ravens' offense is so one-dimensional, and pretty much if you have the proper game plan to stop Lamar Jackson, what else can they really do? If he's not running the ball and you make him throw from outside the pocket, get him scrambling around, yeah, he'll beat you a couple times. But the Steelers' defense, arguably the best defense in the league. To me, it's a no-brainer. I looked at the spread earlier. Steelers are plus 3.5. That's a bet that you have to take, right? I don't know what they're seeing or what they're hearing early in the week. And if you don't believe me on the Ravens offense kind of being one-dimensional, the Ravens just signed Dez Bryant to their practice squad. That alone should cause some concern for Ravens fans. That's a bit of a reach.
Yeah, but should I take that from like a obvious Cowboys hater, like with full?
I did hate him, I'm not gonna lie. Full disclosure, I couldn't stand Dez Bryant, but out of nowhere, I didn't hear any other teams even really, giving it much thought.
No, and it is to the practice squad. He won't be active this week. But to your point, I think Pittsburgh's D. Baltimore does have a good running offense. They're not as good as they were this year as they were last year, but
sure.
You have 3 actual running backs in that backfield that could break anyone off. They're not doing as well this year. Their offensive line is a little shaky, in my opinion, but Pittsburgh just stopped Derrick Henry. Henry had a great game, but none of the Baltimore running backs, even though they're good, they're not a Derrick Henry. The Pittsburgh secondary can easily shut down Hollywood Brown and whoever else they throw out there. So it's more of a, can the Steelers contain? And I don't really know that because they really haven't. Tannehill is a kind of running quarterback, but they don't really have anybody that can hit the corner and go. I think that's the key to the game is, can those linebackers keep contained and keep him within the middle of the field? Because if he gets outside, it's going to be ugly. But yeah, I'm surprised that it's in Baltimore though, right?
Yeah, it is in Baltimore, and I think they might be allowing a certain amount of fans, but I don't know how much home field advantage you're getting with 5,000 fans.
Yeah.
The weather, it's not going to be. It's not like you have a California team traveling to 40-degree, 50-degree Maryland. I don't know, but that's what the line was. So, I think the Steelers will win it straight out. I don't think they need the points, honestly.
So, staying with the AFC Central, now that, Cleveland, they have their up weeks, their down weeks. This past week, it was against the Bengals, but Baker came back, got him into the end zone and won it. But now they don't have Odell. So do you see them even being a contender anymore, or is it just Pittsburgh and Baltimore, or can the Browns surprise anybody?
I think they're still a good team. Clearly, they're not going to win the division, right? They lost handedly to both the Ravens and the Steelers already this season. Do I think OBJ is a big part of that offense? Or obviously he's great for those explosive plays, whether it's those reverses or taking a shot downfield on some wide receiver passes. Of course, OBJ is a game changer, but I don't think they're losing so much, given that their expectations at this point are really a wild card. No, they're not going to win the division. Still have Jarvis Landry, who I think is underrated. Kareem Hunt, and I think Nick Chubb comes back soon, right?
Possibly 2 weeks.
Yeah, so they'll still be competitive. They'll still win games. It'll still be exciting to watch. because I think they are one of the more skilled teams from like an athletic perspective in the NFL. But it's unfortunate that he had to go down that way with the kind of a terrible knee injury. But I think the Browns will just be what we thought the Browns were going to be prior to losing him, to be honest.
So last topic on the NFL, just curious, who do you think is the better rookie quarterback so far this year? Tua hasn't played, but do you have Burrow or Herbert? Who's impressed you more?
I think you have to go with Joe Burrow. Just given the circumstances of the team he's playing on, right? He's playing on the Bengals, who going into the season, I think they had the worst rated offensive line in the league. They may have gotten better through the first few weeks, but you got to figure they're still towards the bottom. I think he may lead the league in most plays under pressure and all those, different stats as far as pressures, hits, things like that, knockdowns. And given all that, he's still showing out every week. I think he has, 6 games already with 300 plus passing yards, and then one more to tie the record, or maybe it's 5 and 6 will tie. But in any case, I just think he's showing out, and with very, very limited players around him. I mean, AJ Green, he's kind of been here and there, takes 1 week off, plays the next week. He'll have 8 catches, then he'll go for 0. Joe Mixon's been out. Nothing to taking nothing away from Herbert. I mean, he's throwing the ball downfield like it's a college game with those big receivers out there, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. But I think you have to go Joe Burrow at this point, just seeing the way he's playing under such pressure and not a lot of weapons around him.
See, I would go with Herbert, because Burrow knew going into the season and into the limited training camp, he was the number one. And Herbert, what was it, week 2, week 3? The doctors punctured the lung of the starting quarterback. He finds out 5 minutes before that he's now the starter. So he didn't get to practice the reps and everything like that. And he just looked calm, cool, collected, comfortable back there. I was debating that the Dolphins should have took him over Tua. Now, this week I guess I'll find out if my concerns were correct. But so now we're talking about the rookies. So let's talk about college football. Not many upsets in week 8 of college football, or week 1 if you're the Big Ten, whatever conference you're in. But the biggest one was obviously Penn State. There was a lot of hopes for them. I think they were ranked number 8 going into the week, and that overtime game to Indiana. Did that shock you at all?
Not really. I feel like Indiana always plays at least one top Big Ten team real close each year. Sometimes, pulling off what could be viewed as a miraculous victory based on their preseason rankings or in-season rankings, depending on when they play. So I'm not shocked, honestly. The question is, should they have even won the game, right? I mean, is that a touchdown? I mean, is it a conversion? Is it not a conversion? I mean, it's still a bad game from Penn State, even if they win by 1, right? But still, I mean, a win's a win. How do you see that play? Do you think they made the right call I
honestly think they made the right call. I know everybody is focusing on the ball was on the line when it hit the pylon, but prior to hitting the pylon, it was inbounds and the tip of the ball crossed the goal line. Mm-hmm. So the ball doesn't have to hit the pylon to be a touchdown. It has to cross the goal line. So everybody is focusing on that image where the pylon's falling over and the ball is on the edge. But the ball didn't hit the tip of the ball didn't hit the pylon. It was about by the white stripe. Therefore, the ball has been in for a couple of inches. His hips, his knees, everything was off of the ground. So I personally think it was the right call.
Yeah, and I think, I guess going back to your original question of being shocked, being that it's week 1, I mean, if there's any time to lose it's clearly earlier in the season because we know that when these rankings start coming out towards the end, towards the college playoff, those losses towards the end of the season carry a lot more weight than those losses early in the season. I mean, Indiana might finish the season, top 25 team. Are they expected to? No, but I mean, if you're losing to a top 25 team by 1 point in overtime, do you still have a shot? Maybe. You could argue there's less games for them this season, so that it kind of weighs more. But yeah, it's disappointing. But I guess if you're going to lose, I mean, these might be the best circumstances to lose to a rival, early in the season in overtime. That's just the way
to be a Big Ten team that makes the playoff because they only play 8 games, I guess, in a college championship or a conference championship. You have to lose to a top 4 team and close. Indiana's not a top 4 team. It doesn't matter when. If this was the SEC and they were playing weeks ago and Alabama loses to Ole Miss or whatever the hell it is, then maybe your theory sticks, but not. I mean, you're in week 8, so you say it's an early loss, but in the heart of everybody in the AP and everything like that, I've seen 7 other games of all these other contenders.
Yeah, I'd say it's just one of those teams that they kind of get the benefit of the doubt based on how they finish each year. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how they respond in the upcoming weeks, but definitely a loss. Speaking of disappointing losses, I know you want to talk about the Rutgers game, huh?
Yeah.
Did you see that one coming?
Shianu, game 1, I think he's going to win as many games this year in the Big Ten as Rutgers has had since they've joined the Big Ten.
I wouldn't even argue that. I mean, I said it going into the week. I was talking to some friends, and I said, I don't expect Rutgers to win the Big Ten or make the college playoff or even finish the top 25. But you got to figure they're going to be competitive with Greg Schiano coming back. I think it's all about, especially due to the COVID circumstances, having limited practice. I think coaching really, really seeps into how teams play, how teams respond to adversity. And I mean, I don't know if there's any other team in the Big Ten that's faced as much adversity over the last, half a dozen years. I mean, they really haven't been very good. I can't even remember the last time that they finished 100. Who was that?
Schiano was there.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, right. Last time he was there, they were a good team. But I mean, yeah, he came out firing. They looked good too. It didn't look like a fluke. I mean, they pretty much handled. I mean, they controlled the game. Who knows where Michigan State finishes at the end of the year too? So we don't know if that says more about Rutgers or more about Michigan State. But that's a huge, huge win. And who knows? Maybe we'll have to head out to a Rutgers game if they ever let fans back in, or at least tailgate.
Yeah, maybe we'll make it past halftime this time.
Yeah, maybe first quarter.
So before we end up the show, I know we got about 15 minutes left. Last thing on the list is UFC 254, which was this past Saturday. Huge news was Khabib. He fought Justin Gaethje. Everybody thought it was going to be a great fight, a stand-up fight. They thought Gaethje might take him out on the feet. And Khabib, second round, just took him down, choked him out. But I wasn't surprised by that. I thought Khabib would win. But I think the biggest surprise was right at the end of the fight, he announced his retirement. And I really respected his kind of explanation of it. For those that don't know, his father passed away during Ramadan. So he never fights during Ramadan, and his father happened to pass away during Ramadan. His father was his manager, one of his trainers. He said one of his closest friends. In the post-fight interview, he said his mother was trying to talk him out of this fight with Gaethje, but he told his mother that, I agreed to the fight when Dad was alive, so I'm going to follow through with it, but I promise knew that without my father, I'll never fight again. So it was a pretty emotional. He was, very emotional. He took off his gloves, put them in the center of the ring, and walked out. I know we talked about it when it happened via text, and you said, I've seen UFC fighters retire and return. I don't think this is a Conor McGregor. I don't think this is a Bisping. I don't think this is a publicity stunt to get more money. I really think that this guy just has that type of heart. What are you? I mean, I know you're not a huge UFC person, but what are your thoughts on Khabib and 29-0 legacy, never lost in MMA, always dominated? I don't think he ever went to a decision. So what are your thoughts? Is he one of the greatest ever in the UFC?
Yeah, I think he's definitely in that conversation. Undefeated, there's nothing to scoff at. Back to your retirement comment, though, I feel like we hear this. It's every year. There's somebody retiring from UFC. Circumstances, obviously, in this case, are different, right? You would like to think that this is a kind of a genuine. This is a promise I made. I'm going to follow through with it. It's not just, I'm tired. I've beaten who I need to beat. I've proven what I need to prove, and now I'm going to call it quits and come back a couple of years later. So we'll see. We'll see on that. But to your question, yeah, I mean, he's beaten all the top contenders, the more popular fighters. For those like myself who are not as familiar with UFC, I mean, he's beaten them all. Anybody who has challenged him, Conor McGregor, right? I mean, that wasn't even, I guess, as close as they thought it was, or that they thought it would be. So yeah, I'll defer to you on greatest of all time, but just based on purely the numbers, I think he's definitely in that conversation.
I have him up there with probably George St. Pierre. I would say those are probably the two best. People will say John Jones, but with all his performance-enhancing issues, and I'll never call anybody the greatest ever when they've been arrested more times than they've held the belt.
It's a good point.
So that's just my two thoughts. But the last two things with the UFC, because I know you're not a huge fan, but we have –
Yep, I did see this.
Well, Philip Hawes. Philip Hawes, he's a fighter out of New Jersey, so near and dear to my heart. I can't say Pat's because he's really a Staten Island boy. Even I still let him on the show. But he had a knockout that I've never seen before, and we have a clip of it. And when we show the clip, I want you guys to focus on the ring girl because she's about 10 feet away. She's social distanced, but she sees a million of these fights. And the reaction on her face is like, oh my God, this guy just died. So I'm wondering what face she saw when Philip Hawes hit this dude. And when he turned around, I'm just curious because it was the most amazing reaction I've ever seen in my life.
I think I had the same reaction.
Of the UFC.
Here it comes, right?
Oh my God!
Man,
My goodness!
oh, we didn't catch the ring girl on that one. But yeah, there's a ring girl where she literally is like, looks at the person next to her and grabs them because she's like, oh my God, I think I just saw somebody get murdered. But
out for longer than the duration of the fight.
He didn't even come out for when they raised the dude's hand, and then his team had to help him walk out. I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, it's just disturbing, to be honest. I mean, he's going to be a hell of a fighter for sure, Hawes. But that was as violent as they come in terms of UFC knockouts. I haven't seen anything quite like that.
The last UFC, which was 2 weeks ago, I believe, you had that one knockout where the guy threw a body kick. Dude caught it, and he did, while his leg is caught, he did a spinning back kick to the guy's face and just laid him out. It wasn't devastating, but that one was maybe more impressive because of the skill level. It was like Matrix style. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, the kicks are always, those are always, I guess, more of a more likely of a knockout. But for him to just come in, kind of, he had no regard for his own body. He was just swinging and then landed that one. Topped it off with a little extra at the end there. But very impressive. And when's the last time that UFC really had a great fighter from New Jersey? I mean, you know better than I do.
Oh, Frankie Edgar, come on. Frankie Edgar.
Sorry, guys. Sorry for the UFC fans out there. I'm not going to pretend to be
come on. So the last one I just wanted to share. So there's a guy, I'm probably going to pronounce his name wrong, Taya Tuivasa. So he's part of this group out of New Zealand. No, I think it's New Zealand. So they call themselves the Nelk Boys, and like I've seen videos of them. They go out partying. It's like their TikTok group that does like all this crazy stuff, but they like party, they drink, they're crazy. So he has a convincing win, right? Knocks a dude out, jumps on the cage, and he tells somebody to throw him a shoe. And the refs pull him off the cage. They don't let it happen. Then at the close of the fight, they go backstage and they go, "This is what the Nelks boys do." And they show a video, and we have a clip of it, but I'll kind of set it up. So they get a shoe that somebody wore. It's not like a brand new Jordan out of a box that somebody wore. Like 6 people spit in it. Then they pour a beer in it and chug it.
That's not how you drink your beer?
No.
Oh, that's what you just called it.
You want to make crickets in Perth, Australia? This is exactly how you do it. You chug a beer out of a shoe. So Tai Tuivasa is on the back.
Tai Tuivasa? I did good on the name.
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
Now, Pat, I'm sure most of you that'll watch the first week know either me or Pat, because I'm sure we're not going to get a huge audience first week of just randoms. Yeah. So we play on a softball league together. We're not doing so great this year. So my thought is, if we win, next game we win, we're doing it. But you have to be the one drinking the beer out of my shoe.
Oh, straight out of the cleat, huh?
What?
Straight out of the cleat, huh?
Oh, straight out of the cleat.
I mean, that's never going to happen. There's absolute zero chance. For those who know me,
win or that you drink the beer out of the shoe? Which one?
What was that?
That we win or that you drink a beer out of the shoe?
Both are questionable at this point, based on the last 3 games. There's a possibility that we win, but there's absolutely zero chance that I'm drinking a beer out of a shoe. Even if it was my own, it's just not going to happen.
Well, that's all we had for today. Anybody who watches this on Friday, thank you for being a friend, because I'm sure you obviously know one of us. But please, share this, like this, tag us in posts, do whatever. I also want to thank the Sports Snobs podcast network for allowing us to do this. I know I've wanted to do a podcast for a while. Pat expressed to me that he did as well. So, our screen names are there. Share with us. Pat, you have anything to close with?
Nothing more, really. Just a big thanks for getting this all put together. Appreciate anyone who watches, shares, likes, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next week with our second episode.
And we'll be bigger and better.
Bigger, much bigger.
Thank you very much, everyone.
video. Welcome back, video. Welcome back. Welcome back, video creeps. What up, guys? What up? Welcome to my channel, Video Creep. Make sure you hit subscribe.
We're going to go over this one time and one time only.
Hey everybody, have you heard the news? Joe Bob is back in town. Joe Bob is back in town. Joe Bob is back in town.
Hello, internet fans. Do you want to learn about horror movies that you never knew existed? Do you miss the video store but not the late fees? Then join us at 3B Video, where we talk about stuff like this, and this, and this. If you'll excuse me, I've got some videotapes to return. You like Huey Lewis in the news?